Hello and welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 20th of October 2023। तो चलिए आज के इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल हिंदी न्यूज़पेपर से वन बाय वन देख लेते हैं। पहला जो है ओवर 2 मिलियन ट्रैप्ड इन गाजा एज अटैक कंटिन्यूज, देन एंडलेस वॉर्स, द शेप ऑफ climate justice in a warming India, an opportunity to recast India's food system, why SLLS also need to be reformed. Why are the earthquakes frequent in Afghanistan? Then Modi reiterated support for the Palestinian statehood. Major regional disparity in overcoming cancer to survival rates are up as study. Then Masa Amini, whose death led to protest, awarded EU Human Rights Prize. India's share of growth to rise 18%. Then moderating inflation is bolstering India's macro fundamentals. A draft menstrual hygiene policy is finally out। ये साइंस का पर्सन है। तो चलिए वन बाय वन देख लेते हैं। जितने सारे इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल है पहले देख लेते हैं। एक और इम्पोर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन जो शेयर करना चाह रहा हूँ दोस्तों, हम लोग एक टेलीग्राम चैनल ओपन करने के लिए सोच रहे हैं। तो आज या कल से शुरू हो जाएगा, वो ओपन हो जाएगा। वहाँ पर सारे मतलब जितने सारे हम लोग एनालिसिस करेंगे। अभी तो रीडिंग हो रहा है, आगे जब मतलब एनालिसिस होगा तो उसका जो पीडीएफ वगैरह है वो वहाँ पर डाल दिया जाएगा। अब जो है वहाँ पर जाके आपका पीडीएफ वगैरह सब ले सकते हैं, ठीक है। तो मैं अनाउंस करूँगा एक दो तीन दिन के अंदर उसे मैं अनाउंस करूँगा, ठीक है ना। अगर आपको जाके वहाँ पर ज्वाइन करना है ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं। और हम लोग क्या करेंगे नेक्स्ट में जो है एनसीईआरटी बैच स्टार्ट करेंगे। एनसीईआरटी वन बाय वन 6 से 12 तक पूरा कवर करेंगे एनसीईआरटी। और उसका जो पीडीएफ वगैरह नोट वगैरह जितने सारे इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल और आई मीन जितने सारे क्वेश्चन आंसर भी होगा वहाँ पर डाल दिया जाएगा। तो आप लोग वहाँ ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं इफ यू विश। चलिए चलिए आज के इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स पहले स्टार्ट करते हैं। ओवर 2 मिलियन पीपल ट्रैप्ड इन गाजा एज attacks continues as attacks continue। Israeli airstrikes pounded locations across the Gaza Strip on Thursday, including parts of south that Israel had declared as safe zones, highlighting fears among more than 2 million Palestinians trapped in the territory that now were was safe. Even after Israel told Palestinians to evacuate the north, the head to what it called safe zone in the south strikes continued across the territory overnight, and Palestinian militants continued firing rockets into Israel. A residential building in Khan Yunis, a city in southern Gaza, where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians had sought shelter, was among the places hit. Medical personnel at Nasser Hospital said they received at least 12 dead and 40 wounded. The bombardment came after Israel agreed on Wednesday to allow Egypt to deliver limited humanitarian aid to Gaza, the first crack in a punishing 11-day siege. Many of the Gaza's residents were down to one meal a day and drinking dirty water. The announcement of a plan to bring water, food, and other supplies into Gaza came as fury over a Tuesday night explosion at Gaza City Al Ahli Hospital spread across West Asia. There were conflicting claims of who was behind the blast, which authorities in Hamas-run Gaza said had killed hundreds of Palestinian. Mass migration. More than 1 million Palestinians, roughly half of Gaza's population, have fled their homes in Gaza City and other places in the northern part of the territory since Israel told them to evacuate. Most have crowded into United Nations run schools, turned shelters on or the homes of relatives. Gaza's Hamas-led government said several bakeries in the territory were hit in the overnight strikes, making it even harder for residents to get food. इसी में है मोदी प्रोमिजेस एड फॉर पैलेस्टाइनियन। ये थोड़ा छोटा सा आर्टिकल है। प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी ऑन थर्ड डे एक्सप्रेस्ड हिज कंडोलेंस टू Mahmoud Abbas, president of Palestinian Authority, for the loss of Palestinian lives in their ongoing conflict with Israel. Mr. Modi, in a post on X, formerly Twitter, said he assured Mr. Abbas of humanitarian assistance for the Palestinian people and reiterated India's long-standing position on the issue. The Israel military said it killed a top Palestinian militant in Rafah near the Egyptian border and hit hundreds of targets across Gaza, including militant tunnel, shafts, intelligence infrastructure, and command centers. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak arrived in Israel on Thursday in a trip aimed at showing solidarity after the Hamas attack and preventing the war from escalating. The people of Israel had suffered an of unspeakable, horrific attack of terrorism, and I want you to know that the United Kingdom and I stand with you, he said on arrival. Then next, a endless oath. 13 days after Hamas carried out a brutal attack on Israel, killing some 1,400 people, Israel's airstrike on the besieged defenseless Gaza continued with disproportionate ferocity, killing 3,785 Palestinians, including hundreds of children, as Israelis amassing troops and tanks on its border with Gaza in preparation for a ground invasion after ordering some 1 million people to evacuate from the northern half of the land strip. US President Joe Biden and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak traveled to Israel to declare their support for the Jewish nation's right to defend itself. Mr. Biden's visit came hours after an attack on a hospital in Gaza left at least 500 dead. The Palestinians say the hospital, which was sheltering thousands, was hit by Israel jets, while Israel claimed that a rocket fired by Palestinian militants caused the explosion, while truth is the first casualty of war. A painful Israel's mindless bombing of a tiny blockaded enclave is pushing its 2.3 million people into an unimaginable struggle of life and death, even as the powerful nation are either looking away or busy breaking Israel's campaign. Mr. Biden announced that Israel has allowed to let some 20 trucks of humanitarian aid into Gaza from Egypt. While any aid is welcome, 20 trucks of aid for 2 million people is, as the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent societies put it, a drop in the ocean. The October 7 Sabbath attack that Hamas carried out in Israel should be condemned without any hesitation. At the same time, collectively punishing Gaza in the name of fighting Hamas and carrying out indiscriminate bombing that is killing hundreds a day do not make Israel any better than Hamas. Moreover, this approach of the Israeli state towards the Palestinian has neither improved Israel's security nor helped the stakeholders find a solution to the crisis. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on whose watch the country's biggest security crisis unfolded, says he will cross Hamas, but Israel does not have easy options. Reoccupying Gaza would lead to an prolonged urban war of attrition. Human Hamas rose to prominence using the vacuum left by the failures of Fatah and the Palestinian Liberation Organization. If Israel manages to diminish Hamas' influence in Gaza, nobody knows what comes next as the Palestinian question, which is the ongoing Israel occupation, remains unaddressed. In an ideal world, the US, the most powerful country, which is ruled by the president who has stated his commitment to a foreign policy centered on the human rights, should be enraged by what its ally doing and apply pressure on Tel Aviv to stop the bombing and start talking involving regional powers. But as that is a non-possibility as of now, Israel is set to continue the attack with impunity, multiplying the woes of millions of Palestinians. The next is the shape of climate. The shape of climate justice in a warming India. The G20 summit that was held in Delhi September 9 to 10 agreed on a tripling renewable energy capacity and energy efficiency improvement by 2030. However, this Delhi declaration on climate question did not find consequences on the most contentious issues, which is the root cause of the climate crisis of the phasing out of the fossil fuel and any energy transition initiatives must embrace two normative ideals. First, internalizing cost requires those who emit greenhouse gases to pay the social and environmental cost. Second, climate justice requires compensation for those who are harmed. Often those who contribute to climate change are not the ones who are affected by it. Therefore, any mitigation efforts must be inverted in this carbon injustice by making the richer countries or richer classes within a country pay for energy transition. While these two principles are articulated at the international level, how such policies and politics affect the domestic front do not get debated. India's stance on the matter has largely been framed through the lens of foreign policy and its approach to common but differentiated responsibilities in the international negotiation, which allows the developing countries in the global south to prioritize economic growth and development over climate mitigations. Given the country's historically lower emissions, focusing on economic growth has naturally taken precedence over climate concerns. Such an approach evades concerns of climate justice within India, particularly its effect on inequality across class, caste, and region. Inequality matrix. It is now well documented across the world that climate change and energy transition disproportionately affect the poor. The climate induced problems and droughts have compounded the agrarian crisis and allied economic activities. Variations in rainfalls, temperature, and extreme climate events directly impact agricultural productivity, compounding farmers' income loss. Rising temperature in the ocean ecosystem has already begun squeezing fish stocks in parts of country, hurting fishing communities. While the relationship between the inequality and carbon emission is complex, it is clear that addressing both environmental and socio-economic inequalities simultaneously is essential for the sustainable and equitable development. It is now evident that less equitable societies tend to have higher emission outputs per unit of economic activity. Given its highly unequal economic structure, India is falling in that trap. Global experiences suggest that societal responses which are necessary to address climate change, such as public action and state capacity, are impeded in more unequal settings. The cost of carbon emission in terms of societal impact becomes significantly higher in such contexts. Recognizing and mitigating the barriers that these inequality matrices pose to effective climate action is a critical step toward a more sustainable and just future. Greening development. If climate change compound existing inequality, India's energy transition policy through crucial will affect the livelihood of the poor and exacerbate existing caste and regional disparity. India's national determined contribution to aim to ensure that 40% of the total installed power generation capacity is clean energy. The country has pledged to achieve net zero emission by 2070. As such an ambitious target necessitates careful study of its implications. As of 2021, coal was the major contributor to the total energy supply in India, accounting for 56.1%, followed by crude oil. It accounts for 33.4%. Similarly, the industrial sector was the largest consumer of energy, using more than half, that is 51% of the total final energy consumption, followed by transport 11%, residential 10%, and agriculture 3.6%. 6% sector. Data shows that manufacturing is far more energy and carbon intensive than agriculture and services. Subsequently, any increase in energy price is likely to lead to a contraction of manufacturing, which India cannot afford given its already low manufacturing levels. Thus, a just transition entails a holistic approach that considers economic, social, and regional inequalities. While renewable energy adoption is crucial, this shift should not exacerbate existing disparities. For instance, regions that are heavily reliant on coal production face a unique set of challenges. These regions often struggle with pollution, poverty, and low quality employment. Transitioning to renewables requires a deliberate focus on protecting livelihoods, offering alternative jobs opportunities, and ensuring that vulnerable communities are not adversely impacted. The emphasis in the Paris Agreement is taking into account the imperative of a just transition of workforce and creation of decent work and quality job for nationally defined development priorities. The skill sets required and the jobs generated per unit of output is renewable vastly differ from the fossil fuel industries. Many fossil fuel farms are in the public sector and act as a critical avenue for creating job opportunities for Dalits and the lower caste in the India. A shift to renewable energy can potentially halt this generational mobility achieved by these disadvantaged groups. To ensure an equitable and sustainable transition, strategies must target inequality reduction and green investment simultaneously. Green Greening federalisms. Similarly, regions heavily reliant on coal production may lose the revenue and livelihood. This regional divide in economic inequality correlates with energy source divide in India. Coal, the cheapest source of energy, is located in the poor regions in the eastern and central India, while renewable energy hub powered by wind and solar photovoltaic technology are located in the relatively wealthy southern and western India. Despite the pollution it causes, the coal sector owned by the public sector minus 85% is the main source of revenue via taxes, royalties, and mining fees and employment for the state government in Odisha, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh. India's energy transition strategy must pay attention to these regional inequalities, transfer funds to states dependent on coal, and carve carve out state specific programs for reskilling, development, and local rehabilitation needs. Thus, the Green Deal needs to have a federal deal. India's federal governance structure implies that sub-national government play a significant role in addressing climate concerns. However, their priorities can differ significantly from those of the union government. Examining sub-national responses reveals how state entities are vital in tackling the challenges of climate inequality mitigation. State governments have been found to implement policies including those related to climate justice, climate adaptation, and disaster management laid out by the union government that are often at odds with the development aspirations of states. We must delve into the intricate interaction between federalism and climate mitigations to understand how policy alignment and cooperation can be achieved across the levels of the government. Then next, an opportunity to recast India's food system. Earlier this week we celebrated World Food Day, October 16, but we rarely look at the food as a system. No country can better understand the challenges of a food system than India, which feeds the largest population in the world. While the primary goal of the food system is to ensure nutrition security for all, it can only be achieved sustainably if the producer producing the food make reasonable economic returns that are resilient over time. This resilience is in turn is intricately linked with the resilience of our natural ecosystem, because the largest input to agriculture, soil, water, and climate condition are all but natural resources. Appreciating this interconnectedness of nutrition security with livelihood and environmental security is essential to making our food system truly sustainable. Nutrition, livelihood, environmental security. On the nutrition front, India faces a double burden of malnutrition at one end. Despite making great progress over the years, a sizable proportion of Indian exhibit nutrition deficiencies. As in the National Family Health Survey 2019-21, 35% of children are stunted and 57% of women and 25% of men are anemic. At the other end, due to the imbalanced diet and sedentary lifestyles, 24% of adult women and 23% of adult men are now obese. India has been stepping up efforts to reduce malnutrition, which has included even the Prime Minister calling for the mass movement to eradicate it on the production side. Farm incomes are insufficient to meet the ends of marginal and small farmers, according to a report by the Transforming Rural India Foundation. More than 68% of the marginal farmers supplement their incomes with non-farm activities. The Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act (MGNREGA) and other forms of casual labor are picking up the slack, indicating a lack of skills or opportunities for income diversification. Further depleting natural resources and changing climate are making India's food production highly vulnerable. As in the 2023 Soil Health Survey, almost half the cultivable land in the India has become deficient in organic carbon, which is an essential indicator of soil health. Groundwater, the largest source of irrigation, is rapidly declining in the states such as Punjab. More than 75% of the groundwater assessment locations are overexploited, threatening the resilience of farm incomes. Adopt a three-sided approach to solve these interconnected challenges. We need a triad approach that engages all three sides of the food system: consumer, producer, and middleman. First, consumer demand needs to be shifted towards a healthy and sustainable diet. We need to shift to a food plate that is healthier for people and the planet. The private sector drives the aspirational consumption patterns for India's billion plus population. What corporations have done to mainstream imported oats or quinoa in India can be done for locally grown millets. Civil society and the healthy community could partner with social media influencer who can shape healthier and sustainable consumption for millions. Alongside the public sector, though, through its innumerable touch points such as the public distribution system, midday meals, railways, catering, urban canteens, and public and institutional procurement can help improve what at least 70% of India's Indian are consuming. Even religious institutions can shape food choices. For instance, the Tirumala Tirupati Desathanam, which serves nearly 70,000 people daily, has started procuring naturally farmed produce. Second, to ensure resilient incomes, we must support farmers' transitions toward remunerative and regenerative agricultural practices. The national mission on natural farming is a step in this direction, but the overall funding for the sustainable agriculture is less than 1% of the agricultural budget. We need to broaden and scale up such initiative to various agroecological practices such as agroforestry, conservation agriculture, precision farming, and much more. Further, agriculture support should move from input subsidies to direct cash support to farmers per hectare of cultivations. It would promote efficient use of inputs while enabling a level playing field for agroecological practices to thrive. Agricultural research and extension services should also earmark a proportion of their respective budgets to focus on sustainable agricultural practices. Third, shift farm to fork value chain toward more sustainable and inclusive ones. A critical approach to enhance rural incomes in to enable more value addition of agricultural produce in rural areas. Middlemen such as corporations supplying raw and processed food to consumers should prioritize direct procurement from farmers, incentivize procurement of sustainably harvested produce, and implement well-established approaches such as fair trade. Various young agri-tech enterprises such as The Hath and Ninja Cart are enabling such farm to buyer linkages. Moreover, since all farmer families in a farmer producer organization FPO are a consumer of other farming goods, enabling trading of produce between FPOs in another way to ensure a greater value share for farmers as showcased by a few FPOs in Odisha. Shifting an entire food system, however, is no mean feat, but the scale of the challenge must not deter our ambitions. So if we act fast, India has a unique opportunity to showcase to the rest of the world how to get its food system right. Then next, why SLLS also need to be reformed. The recent tabling of bills on criminal laws has become a causa celebre. In as much as they set overdue reforms into motions, the bill do well to amend the substantive criminal law as codified in the Indian Penal Code, IPC Code of Criminal Procedure, and Indian Evidence Act. The offences and procedures outlined in the IFC and CRPC represent just one facet of a general criminal law, and it's vital to recognize that the most critical offences and procedures are encompassed within the special and local laws. Keeping SLS away from the ongoing reforms process is a major drawback. SLS have immense quantitative and qualitative relevance in the Indian criminal justice system. The illustrate nearly 39.9% of all cognizable offences registered in 2021 were under SLLS as per the crime in India statistics of 2021. Of the total nearly 61 lakh cognizable offences registered, 24.3 lakh offences were registered under SLLs alone. On the qualitative side, SLLs have given rise to several fundamental and pertinent debates, discourses, and discussions regarding the limits on the state power of criminalization, especially in the context of violation of individual rights and liberties. Need for reform in the SSS. The substantive issues in SSS are not only abundant but also varied. On the one hand, SLLS such as Unlawful Activity Prevention Act 1967 UAPA and the Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act 1999 MCOCA suffer from glaringly deficient, ambitious, and vague definitions of offence and terms such as terrorist act, unlawful activity, organized crime syndicate, etc. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offence Act 2012 is increasingly being criticized for its applicability to consensual sexual activities between minors. Concerns have also been raised regarding criminalization of such conduct through SLLs, which would otherwise fall squarely within the domain of civil wrongs or at best regulatory wrongs. To illustrate, the Supreme Court in the cause of P. Mohan Raj versus M.S. Saha brothers Ispat Limited 2021 referred to Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 as a civil suit in a criminal wolves clothing. Procedurally, too, it is through SLS that universally accepted due to due process values are increasingly being diluted. Increased powers of search and seizure under Section 43A of the UAPA and the admissibility of confession recorded by police officer under Section 18 of the MCOCA are prime examples. The stringent provision provided for under Section 43D5 of the UAPA, Section 37 of the Narcotic, Drug and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985 and Section 45 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act PMLA 2002 make the grant of bail a nearly impossibility. And all encompassing legal code. Between the enactment of IPC in 1860 and today, there has been a major shift in the canvas of criminal laws. The increasing enactment of and application of SSS represents an understanding of criminal laws which is out of synchronize with the original project of codification. The shift in this sense represents a major move from the idea of the complete codification of all criminal laws inspired by Bentham's idea of a Panominion all comprehensive collection of rules codified in a single place. The IPC was thus conceived to be more than just a legal digest. It was meant to contain within its pages all criminal laws of time. At the time of its drafting, it was expected that the IPC would be suitably amended in situations requiring the creation of new offences, clarifying of existing offences, and removal of inconsistencies. It is true that the IPC today is criticized for the retention of an archaic morality as well as the colonial roots which underpins many of its offences. The challenges to homosexuality under Section 377 in Nabtej Johar versus Union of India 2018 and sedition under Section 124A in SG Bhumbatkare versus Union of India 2022 are all symbolic of the need to reform several aspects of our criminal laws. Nonetheless, it is hard to argue that as far the idea of codification is concerned, the penal experiment in the form of IPC and CRPC has been unsuccessful. A successive government placed increasing reliance on the SSS for a variety of reasons. It becomes imperative that the same should not be allowed to overpower the idea of codification of penal laws as imbibed in the IPC as well as the CRPC. All SSS will which criminalize seek to criminalize a conduct should find a place as a separate chapter within the larger structure of the penal code. All the SSS which create a separate procedure for reporting of offences at arrest, investigation, prosecutions, trial, evidence and bail must be included either as a separate procedure within the CRPC or as expectation to the general provisions provided therein. None the Non-inclusion of the substantive and procedural aspect of the SSS in the ongoing reforms project is a serious limitation. It is imperative, therefore, that a second generation of reform be brought in order to address the lacuna. Sorry. Then next जो है fire earthquake frequent in Afghanistan. How many earthquakes have hit Afghanistan over the recent past? What is the anatomy of an earthquake? What is the hypocenter and epicenter? An earthquake of magnitude of 6.3 struck western Afghanistan on October 15, barely a few days after multiple earthquakes of similar strength killed at least 1,000 people in the Herat province. Multiple earthquakes have destroyed entire villages in the country. Afghanistan Taliban-run government has put out conflicting number of deaths toll from October 11 quake. Reuters reported on October 13 the disaster management ministry revised downwards the death toll from the earthquake to around 1,000 from an earlier figure of 2,400. The United Nations Humanitarian Office had said earlier that around 1,300 people died, the report added. In this, the first time Afghanistan has faced widespread destruction from the intense earthquake over the years. In June 2022, more than 1,000 people were killed when an earthquake of magnitude 6.1 struck Pust and Paktika provinces in 2015. A major earthquake that struck in the country's northeast killed over 200 people in Afghanistan and neighboring northern Pakistan. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake in 2002 killed about 1,000 people in northern Afghanistan. In 1998, another earthquake and subsequent tremor in northeast Afghanistan killed at least 4,500 people. How do earthquakes occur? Earth is made up of chunks of solid rocks called tectonic plates discontinuous in these rocks masses along which they have moved are called fault lines. These fractures are a result of tectonic forces and stress that builds up in the Earth's lithosphere, causing the rocks to break and slip. An earthquake occurs when blocks of lithosphere suddenly slip past one another, releasing energy and sending seismic waves through the ground. The surface where the lithosphere chunks slip become a fault plane, the point wherein the earth where the fault rupture starts and produces an earthquake is called the focus or hypocenter. The point on the surface of the earth directly above it is called the एपिसेंटर. जहाँ पे शुरू होता है मतलब जहाँ से एक्सप्लोजन शुरू होता है वहाँ उसे एपिसेंटर बोला जाता है. एंड एपिसेंटर से नियरेस्ट जो है अर्थ का सरफेस उसे एपिसेंटर हाइपोसेंटर कहा जाता है जहाँ से मतलब एनर्जी निकलता है और जहाँ पर मतलब नियरेस्ट अर्थ सरफेस जहाँ पे पहुँचता है मतलब एकदम फास्ट जाके जहाँ पे पहुंचता है उसे एपिसेंटर कहा जाता है जो सरफेस अर्थ की सरफेस पे रहता है. टेक्टोनिक प्लेट्स आर स्लो मूविंग बट आर ऑलवेज इन मोशन मोस्टली ड्यू टू द हीट एनर्जी जनरेटेड इनसाइड द अर्थ. The edge of these plates are called plate boundaries and consist of faults. This is where the earthquake occur. Why do frequent earthquakes occur in Afghanistan? Afghanistan is located over multiple fault lines in the region where the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates meet. These plate collide often, leading to significant tectonic activity. Afghanistan is located on the Eurasian plate toward western Afghanistan. The Arabian plate subduct northward under Eurasia and towards eastern Afghanistan. In the Indian plate does the same. In southern Afghanistan, the Arabian and the Indian plate adjoin sorry adjoin and both subduct northward under the Eurasian plate. The Hindkush mountain range and the Pamir Knot are geologically complex regions where tectonic plates meet. The collision and convergence of the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate result in the folding and faulting of the Earth's crust. These geological complexity contribute to the occurrence of earthquake in the region. The ongoing northward movement of the Indian plate toward the Eurasian plate also results in the compression, leading to uplift of Himalayas and the transmission of tectonic stress across the entire region, including Afghanistan. The compression causes the crust to deform and creates faults and fractures that can slip and generate earthquake. These interactions at plate boundaries generate significant tectonic stresses and result in earthquake. Afghanistan is also crisis crossed by various active fault systems like the Chaman fault and the main Pamir Trust. These faults are the source of many earthquakes in the region. ये जनरल स्टडी पेपर 1 के लिए ज्योग्राफी के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये थोड़ा आप लोग इम्पोर्टेंट बहुत ज़्यादा है अर्थक्वेक, तो इससे थोड़ा आप देख लेंगे अच्छी तरह से और नोट भी बना लेंगे यहाँ से, है ना. तो चलिए नेक्स्ट का देखते हैं. मोदी reiterates support for Palestinian statehood. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday expressed his condolences to Mahmoud Abbas, President of a Palestinian Authority, for the loss of Palestinian lives in the ongoing conflict with Israel. The Prime Minister had earlier spoken with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and expressed India's support to efforts to defeat terrorism, echoing India's official positions. Of the opposition Congress also expressed support for the rights of the Palestinian people. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge called for an immediate ceasefire and for humanitarian assistance to the people of the Gaza Strip. Shared our deep concerns at the terrorism, violence, and deteriorating security situation in the region. Reiterated India's long-standing principled position on Israel-Palestinian issue. Mr. Modi said in a post in X. Mr. Abbas heads the Palestinian Authority, which is a headquarters in the West Bank city of Ramallah. The Gaza Strip, however, is controlled by the Hamas militant groups since the bombing of the Al Ahli Hospital on Tuesday. The West Bank has witnessed major protests against Israel's military campaign against the Gaza Strip, Indian leader have maintained communication with both sides in the conflict which erupted when Hamas attacked Israeli targets on October 7 in in an unprecedented multi-level operation. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has also spoken to his counterpart from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, Faisal bin Farhan and Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan. It is understood that India's conversation with other stakeholders is aimed at creating a network of dialogue to foster a solution to current crisis and ensure the well-being of the hostages. Mr. Modi had reached out to Israel immediately after the attack and condemned the killing by Hamas. This is supplemented by the Ministry of External Affairs, which reiterated that India continues to seek a two-state solution which a sovereign Palestinian state will exist side by side with Israel. MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi repeated the call for dialogue on Thursday. He also highlighted the India's humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people, saying that $29.53 million has been contributed to the United Nations relief and work agencies Congress call. India's official position was echoed by Mr. Kharge, the leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha. The Congress chief said the bombing of Al Ahli Hospital was unjustifiable and called the perpetrators to be held accountable. The Indian National Congress repeats its call for an immediate ceasefire and for humanitarian assistance to the beleaguered people of Gaza. Mr. Kharge said former Congress Chief Rahul Gandhi described the blockade of the Gaza Strip and the taking of hostage by Hamas as a crime against the humanity. The next center says measures in place to check price rise. Union Food Secretary Sanjeev Chopra said here on Thursday that the center has taken adequate measures, including extension of restriction on export of sugar, wheat, and rice, to ensure that the price of these essential items did not increase further and remained stable during the festival season. Mr. Chopra said the 20% export duty on the Parboiled parboiled rice would remain till March 31, 2024 to maintain adequate availability in the domestic market. He said the measure had led to a decline in the export of parboiled rice by 65% in quantity terms and 56% in value terms. The export of broken rice was prohibited and an export duty of 20% was imposed on non-basmati white rice in September last year. Subsequently, export of non-basmati white rice was prohibited in July this year. The purpose of extending the duty regime on parboiled rice is to keep a check on price rise of this crucial staple and maintain adequate availability in the domestic market. Mr. Chopra said 25 lakh ton offloaded on wheat. He said the center has decided to offload 50 lakh ton under the open market scale scheme domestic through e-auctions. The Food Corporation of India sells 2 lakh tons of wheat every week to and so far 25.6 lakh ton has been offloaded. Cooperative agencies NAFED and NCCF as well as Kendriya Bhandar is selling atta in the open market at 27.50 rupees per kg. He said these measures have led to increase availability of wheat in the domestic market and moderated retail and wholesale prices in the wheat in the country. He said the retail inflation in the wheat is about 3.6% in 1 year. The center said Mr. Chopra was confident that the edible oil price would also be stable. Prices are expected to remain stable during the festival season. We are not anticipating any manner of hike in the festival season. If hoped that the price would rule stable in the next couple of months. Mr. Chopra said the government had also decided to extend the restriction on the export of raw white and refined and organic sugar indefinitely. Then major regional disparity in overcoming cancer through survival rates are of study. Nearly 52% of patients diagnosed with cervical cancer between 2012 and 2015 survived, says a study published in the Lancet Regional Health Southeast Asia based on data from the population-based cancer registration across India. A report said various urban PBCRs from different regions of the India were assessed to find the survival rate of cervical cancer patient, and it found that there was significant variation in survival rates across these regions among those that participated in the study. The Ahmedabad urban registry demonstrated the highest survival rate at 61.5%, followed by Thiruvananthapuram with 58.8% and Kollam at 56.1%, and in contrast, Tripura reported a survival rate of 31.6%. The study focused on a total 5,591 cervical cancer cases diagnosed between 2012 and 2015 in 11 PBCRs. The overall survival rate for these cases was 52%, which marked a notable improvement of the approximately 6% compared with the previous cervical cancer survey at 3, where the survival rate was recorded at 46%. The report stated survival rates were notably lower in the India's northeastern region. Factors including access to diagnostic services, effective treatment, and varied across the population, distance from clinical care facilities, travel costs, commodity, commod, com, sorry, comorbidities, and poverty contributed to survival rates, noted the study. A research team including scientists from the National Center for Disease Informatics and Research and the ICMR conducted a comprehensive study on the cervical cancer in India. Then next, Masa Amini, whose death led to protest, awarded European Union Human Rights Prizes. Masa Amini, the 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman who died in police custody in Iran last year, sparkling worldwide protest against the country's conservative Islamic theocracy, was awarded the Union's top human rights prize on Thursday. The European Union award, named for Soviet descendant Andrea Sakharov, was created in 1988 to honor individuals to groups who defend human rights and on fundamental freedoms. Sakharov, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, died in 1989. Other finalists this year included Vilma Nunez, D. Escorcia, and Roman Catholic Bishop Rolando Alvarez, two emblematic figures in the fight for the defense of human rights in Nicaragua, and a trio of women from Poland, El Salvador, and the United States leading a fight from free, safe, and legal abortion. Turning points. Amini died on September 16, 2022 after she was arrested for allegedly violating Iran's mandatory headscarf law. European Parliament President Roberta Metsola said that they will live in infamy, adding that her brutal murder marked a turning point. It has triggered a woman-led movement that is making history, she said, as she announced the awarding of the prize to Amini and the Women Life Freedom Movement in Iran. Sanctions imposed. Women have played a leading role in the protest, with many publicly removing the compulsory Islamic headscarf known as hijab. The 27 nation European Union has imposed sanctions on European officials and organizations, including minister, military officers, and Iranian morality police for human rights abuses over the protest. The award ceremony will take place on December 13. Then next, India's share of growth to rise to 18%. India's contribution to global economic growth will rise by 2% points in 5 years, as the Indian economy is projected to grow faster in the coming years, a senior International Monetary Fund official said on Thursday. Currently, China and India contribution to the global growth is 50%, said Krishna Srinivasan, Director IMF Asia and Pacific Department. Out of this, India say is 60%, 16%, and the rest by the China. The 16% contribution from the India will grow to 18% in the next 5 years. India is growing faster, Mr. Srinivasan added, observing that the Asia Pacific region remained a relatively bright spot despite a challenging global environment. Mr. Srinivasan added that the region's economy was expected to grow by 4.6% in 2023 and by 4.2% in 2024, putting it on track to contribute about two-thirds of the global growth. Growth in India remains strong, he said. We are projecting growth for financial year 2023-24 at 6.3%, supported by the strong government capital expenditure with some crowding in for private sector investment along with continued consumption growth, and despite weakening external demand, he asserted, stating that India's retail inflation was moderating. He said after sharp increase in price in tomatoes and other vegetables in the summer, headline inflation has resumed its downward trend and has returned within the RBI's tolerance band, he added. He said India's government was likely to meet its 5.9% fiscal deficit target in financial year 24. Revenue is expected to reach budgeted levels. There is some pressure on expenditure with higher than budgeted expenditure expected in some areas such as additional LPG subsidy for the poor, higher MNREGA expenses, the official noted. At this stage, we see room in the budget to absorb these unexpected increases. State government's deficit is expected to be 2.8% of the GSDP, below the deficit target of 3%, in line with past budget executions, he added. The IMF has asked countries to retain a sufficiently restrictive monetary stance until inflation is firmly on track, he added. Then next, moderating inflation is bolstering India's macro fundamentals. Inflation has moderated from its July peak, bolstering microeconomic fundamentals. RBI official led by Deputy Governor Michael Debabrata Patra, who wrote in the latest edition of the RBI bulletin released on Thursday, observing that a broad-based gain in momentum was discernible in high-frequency indicators. They wrote in an article that the deleveraging and higher capacity utilization have enabled capacity-heavy industries to gain traction. The Indian rupee is exhibiting low volatility. The World Bank's latest India Development Update reflects India's resilience to global spillover. Even as the pandemic induced pent-up demand once, the official asserted supply chain pressures in India remain below historical average levels. Consumer confidence has improved with uptick in the most of the microeconomic conditions, they added. Upbeat demand. Noting that demand conditions are upbeat in Q3, they said EUA bill volumes remained above 90 million units in September and toll collection grew 20% in terms of value. देन आज का जो लास्ट आर्टिकल है, ड्राफ्ट मेंस्ट्रुअल hygiene policy is finally out. While the debate about the whether menstrual leave must be given or not occupied space, time and efforts, more recently traditionally menstrual hygiene or the access or affordability of menstrual products and private and clean toilets have not been the flavor of any season. The Center Menstrual Hygiene Policy that was recently hosted outlined for comments for the public and experts seems to be to remedy that. The menstrual hygiene policy officially aims at addressing the long-standing challenges associated with the menstruation in our country. The document records historically this is biological phenomena has been overlooked, resulting in negative impacts on girls, women, families, and the environmental. With time, awareness has increased, but we need more investment to comprehensively address the diverse requirements of all individuals who menstruate. India, with its vast and diverse population, acknowledges the critical importance of this issue and places a great emphasis on framing a comprehensive menstrual hygiene policy. This policy is essential for effectively addressing the needs of all who menstruate and promote a positive transformation within our society. Indeed, given the population figures, any problem is bound to be daunting because of the sheer number of the people it affects. You will be surprised at what exists at the ground levels and what women, many of them, go through during the menstruations, says Jayashree Gajraj, former president of Obstetrics and Gynecological Society of the Southern India, and senior professionals. The number of women who have no access to restrooms, access to napkins, or other menstrual products is staggering. It is a reality. First and foremost, it affects the mental health of women, impact on their confidence and developments. And so, if there is a policy that will be seriously implemented and improve women's access to hygiene and privacy, then it is a welcome measure. As he adds, the policy will adopt a life cycle approach and attempt to provide comprehensive support throughout a throughout the menstrual journey from menarche to menopause. So, when and if fully implemented, it might just break down the barriers that women and girls face today. The menstrual hygiene policy document online reiterates its commitment to align with India's aspiration to achieving the sustainable development goals, particularly in relation to good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, and clean water sanitation. City has also pledged to make menstrual product more accessible and affordable. In addition to creating hygienic toilets in the public areas, workplace, and schools, the policy vows to serve as a catalyst to raise awareness, challenges societal norms, and foster a society that embraces menstrual hygiene as a natural and normal part of life. So friends, this is all for today, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with a new news article from the Hindu newspaper. So till then, have fun and practice all these articles. So thank you. Thanks a lot.